Well, now I have the great privilege of introducing our guest speaker today, Rasheryl McCreary. She is CEO of Tao Leadership Development, Inc. She is an expert in brand strategy, presence, and communication. She has traveled to all over the place, and she has done great work for Amex, P&G, HBO, PayPal, many, many others. She has been a gifted practitioner for 25 years. She grew up in Science of Mind. She's actually, rubbed elbows and worked with Michael Beckwith over at Agape, so I'm a little bit impressed there. She is now on the ministerial track, and we are fellow students on this wonderful journey. And I would like to invite her up here, and please open your hearts, open your minds, and be ready to just be filled with the light of this beautiful woman, Rasheryl McCreary.
Can you hear me? Excellent. I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Lori. I love you. And thank you so much, Craig, for that beautiful, is it Andy? John, I'm sorry, for that beautiful song. Beautiful. Andy, John, close. Sorry about that. So I am so thrilled to be here this morning, and I'm so thrilled because it's the Christmas season. And it is a time where we collectively choose to be in joy, where we choose to be giving, where we choose to be loving, where we choose to share, to be generous, where we choose collectively that for this little bit of time, we're going to really usher in the Christ consciousness. And wouldn't it be amazing if collectively we chose to do that all of the time? Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be a beautiful, beautiful experience that we go through every day? So here's the thing that I have noticed, and I heard it a little bit in someone's sharing this morning, someone sharing their good. What I've observed and noticed is that it feels to me sometimes like it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. Right? There's this sort of, even though we're in the Christmas season and there's this wonderful sense of joy and giving, right underneath the surface, it just sometimes feels to me like, what is going on? So interestingly, I went to Costco yesterday to buy a bunch of stuff. I'm having a big Christmas brunch, annual brunch on Christmas Day, in a couple of days. So I went to Costco to shop. And whenever I'm out shopping, I always smile, and I am always try to be the light, right, and bring light. So no matter what anyone else is doing, I let people take the parking space, right? Don't knock anybody down. Don't hurt someone trying to get a parking space, whatever it is, right? Just smile. And so I went into Costco, and it was very interesting because normally I feel like people make eye contact and they smile. And here it is, Christmas season, and I must have passed, I had to park like way far away, and I must have passed about 8 or 9 people, and no one made eye contact, and no one smiled. And I'm walking around like this. And maybe they're just like, I don't know, this weird lady, right? But no one made eye contact, and that was odd to me because this is my Costco in Paradise Valley. I go, all the time. And I'm thinking, this is strange. So I get into Costco, and then I had a nice exchange with a woman there. And I went on through, and then I ended up purchasing some cashews for $20 that I realized I don't need these cashews for this much because I just need a few. So after I purchased them and went out of the store, I circled back to return line to return them. And in the line, I'm waiting, and the line is long. It's taking a long time, but I'm smiling. I'm in spirit. And all of a sudden, this woman behind me yells, "Come on!" And that's the reaction I had. I didn't turn around, and I decided I'm not going to engage this or agree or disagree. It was taking a long time, but, it's Christmas. We're in Costco. It's not, Costco's not known for being like, the express, speedy shopping experience. But I was struck again by how, there were a couple of people who really engaged, and we made eye contact, and we greeted each other. And it's this season, and yet there was also this energy, right? This impatience, this hurry up, right? Even in the parking lot, like people, stealing parking spaces, and someone's yelling at someone. And it just feels very interesting to me. right? Because here we are at this time where we collectively are choosing to give and to be in joy and to celebrate the birth of the Christ consciousness. We're choosing that, and it can look like the best of times and the worst of times, right? So if we look at our world, we look at living right now in 2019, 2018, and it really is the best of times in some ways, right? So technology has created opportunities where none existed before. Just in terms of health, if we look at health, right? Right now there are robots who can perform surgeries that are more precise, more specific, more comprehensive, less invasive, where you can recover much faster. Right now, technology, if you want to be in business, if you want to start a business or market a business, you can do so like that. You can be in business, you can market to millions of people because we have the technology to do so. I remember 20 years ago when I ran a nonprofit. I founded a nonprofit and ran it before I went to the for-profit world, went to the dark side, as my friends say. And I remember clearly 20 years ago that if you needed to market your product or your service or your event that was happening, you had to hire a graphic designer, have flyers or postcards designed, you had to get them printed, then you had to fold them or stuff them into envelopes. You had to have stamps, and you had to have labels to mail them or have someone who was going to write out the addresses for everything and mail it, right? And you needed a budget for all that. And if you had a mailing list of 5,000 people or 10,000 people, you needed a lot of volunteers or a budget to pay for the postage, to pay for the design, to pay for the copying. And now if I want to mail a market to my list or send holiday cards out, I literally type up the email, I push a button, and it goes out to 5,000 people. And I pay $49 a month to do that, right? I mean, things have changed, right? We can now be in contact with our friends, our family members that we haven't seen or long lost contacts, maybe folks we went to elementary school with. We can reconnect with them, be in their lives, have a snapshot of what has been happening for them and where they are. I mean, this is the best of times. And on the romantic front, the relationship front, you know, back in the day, if someone was not in your social circle, if they didn't know your parents, your grandparents, or lived somewhere near your cousins, you would never meet that person. You would never be introduced to that person. And now, if your beloved is a continent away, not in any of your circles, no one in your circle knows that person, and that's your beloved, you can find that person. It's the best of times, right? It's the best of times. And yet, it also appears sometimes like this technology, the things that make it the best of times, can also feel like the worst of times. Right? We have all of these advantages and advances in technology and medicine, and yet we have rampant viruses that antibiotics can't cure. We have diabetes and all these things that are ramping up that we observe out in the world. Right? As much as technology connects us, we also are seeing that for some of our young people whose brains are actually wired differently because they're digital natives, that maybe they're not feeling as connected. They're not able to make that human connection. Right? People are getting addicted to the Facebook, right? And these different things. So the best of times, worst of times. It's interesting, in my work, I do a lot of work with executives at large companies that Lori mentioned. And one of the things I do is I'm an executive leadership coach. That's my official title. I'm really a practitioner, but they don't know that. But I'm an executive leadership coach. And so one of the things I discuss with my clients and that we really explore is that any strength overused becomes a liability, right? So it's the same thing for us collectively. Any great thing overused then becomes a liability, right? And so that's why we feel like we're pulled as we are watching these appearances happen out there, or we're experiencing some of this stuff ourselves, right? And what is it all about? Why are we here? What are we doing in this roller coaster ride that we're on right now? You see, I know that each of us made a choice, right? We chose to incarnate at this time in these bodies, coming through our lineage and our experiences for a reason. We chose to be here, right? We chose to take on these bodies, these vessels right now. And the reason we made that choice to come into all of this this wild ride we're on right now is not by mistake. We're not victims. We didn't just like mistakenly appear. We came here because we knew the ride was going to be wild. Spirit knew before we took form, the ride is going to be wild, and you were made for it. I'm bringing you in here because you were made for the ride that you're on. Because here's the thing, each of us has that within us that has never been touched, that has never been harmed, that has never been endangered, that is pure, that is love, that is connected to spirit, that is light. Each of us has that. And that is why we are here. That is why we're here. We are here to birth that into the world. We are here to be vessels for the love of God. The love of God to show up in the world that needs it right now. It's not for someone else to do. It's not for our politicians to do. It's not for the athletes to do. It's not for the movie stars. They all have their role. They all have their part. It's not for the ministers. It's for us. It's for us to wake up and to give birth, to be the vessel for the love of God to manifest on this planet. That is why we chose to come here. That is why God agreed with us and said, yes, come into this form. Come in with these parents. Come in with these issues and heal them and work on them and uncover them and look at them and walk through them so you can be a testament. You can be the light of the world. You can be the light of the world. And so right now, when we look at the birth of Jesus, right, we look at the birth of this man who was also the Christ, right, the Christ consciousness. He was the human incarnation of spirit, of light, of love, of compassion, right, highly evolved being that took form, that took shape, that became human, so that we could watch and learn by example how to birth and usher in the Christ consciousness in our world. And what's really amazing about the story of the birth of the Christ is that it's so encoded with metaphor. It's such a beautiful, beautiful story. Right? So there's the human story, and some of it may be true, some of it may not be true. Right? Some of it's been altered throughout time. But there's also the metaphor, and that's where I think the secrets are for us, right? So if we are here in this time to usher in light, if we are here in this time to be the light, each of us, Jesus' story, the story of his birth is just so rich for us. So there are a few things I want to call out, right? So one is that we know that we hear of the virgin birth, right? Mary and Joseph were betrothed. Mary becomes pregnant, though she is a virgin. Joseph is ready to call the whole thing off, right? An angel comes. I'll tell you the 2018 version language, right? And an angel comes to Joseph and says, this child that is being born is the Messiah. This child is the light of the world. Right? Joseph's job is to create protection around the divine feminine so that this can be birthed into the world. Yeah. And so then, Jesus is born, but it's not at the Ritz-Carlton. It's not at the Mayo Clinic. It's not the fancy, highbrow places that are exclusive. He's born in a manger in a stable that is inclusive. Animals are there. Anybody can walk by. It's available to anyone. It's not some special esoteric place, some mountain way far off. It's right there in the middle of everything, of the muck and the smells and life that's happening on earth. He's born right there. Yeah. And so when he is born, when this baby is born, it is said that baby Jesus glowed. He was an evolved being. He was a light being, a light worker that came in, that incarnated. And that consciousness was so pronounced that 3 wise men came, right? These kings, earthly power, and they came to honor and to bow before that which was greater than them, that which they knew was the Christ consciousness, and to offer gifts, and to honor, to respect that which was greater, right? So worldly power bowed to that divine emanation known as Jesus the Christ. Right? And so we know the story, but what's the secret for us? Right? What are the secrets for us? So one secret is that when we think about how am I supposed to be the light of the world, how do I do this? Right? And I just want to clarify that being the light of the world does not mean you're the next Christ unless that is your path. Right? It doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to play it out on the world stage. Right? All of us have our part to play. Mother Teresa had a specific part to play on the world stage. Martin Luther King had a specific part to play on the world stage. Jesus had a specific part to play on the world stage forever and ever and ever. And that is fantastic. And we have an equally important part to play in our world, in our sphere of influence, which may be one person at work. It may be your family and your grandchildren. It may be your neighborhood. It may be your community. It may be your spiritual community. It may be the world stage. It's all good. Everybody has a part. And so here's the thing when you're wondering, how do I do this? Because I can sense in this room talking about. Is that right? Yeah, you know this. You feel inside of yourself there is something that wants to birth. There's something that wants to break through, that wants to come out into the world. Right? You feel it. Right, you feel it, and I can feel it too. Because sometimes I'll see people on, on Facebook, and they're like railing against stuff, and I'm like, take that energy and look at what is yours to do with that. And Facebook, like, what is yours to do with that, right? And so here we have a couple about the virgin birth, right? Virgin meant pure, way back in the day, right? Virgin was about purity. So metaphorically, we're talking about a pure, fertile space, consciousness to be conceived, for it to take hold, for the seed to be planted, right? And so when I say pure, what I'm talking about is you want to detox from some of the stuff of the world that we just get engaged with, right? So maybe it's toxic people. Maybe there are people who just trigger you, or you get into a loop with them and it's just toxic. Right, at work, at home, in your family, wherever, right? Or detoxing from watching the news, right? The political news, and going through all of the ins and outs of what's happening in this fight and that fight, and they did this and they said that, and shut this down, they did, like all this stuff is just a negative, toxic loop. Stop it, right? Maybe it means detoxing from situations where you know it just brings your vibration down and you're operating and behaving in ways that you just know it doesn't even work for you. It's not even who you really are, but you get caught, right? You get caught up in that toxicity. So look at where can you do a spiritual detox? What can you let go of? And for the places where you have some toxicity or a cycle that starts to happen and you can't get out of it because maybe it's a family member or someone that you see every day, or it's at work, one thing that you can do to detox is stop saying your lines. Stop playing your part. Because here's what happens in any toxic loop, right? I say something, then Lori says something, then Lori says something, and then she triggers me, and now we're in it, right? Now we're in it, and it just starts escalating from there. And some people like that, right? It feels good to people. But if you know that's you, guess what? When Lori says her triggering line that then makes me want to say something, guess what? I'm not going to say my line. I'm going to bless her. I'm going to smile. I'm going to move away. I'm just not going to play that role. It's that simple. Just don't say your line. I used to be a professional actor right out of college. And one of the things that really helped me understand this is in rehearsal or even on stage. If you're in a scene with somebody and they say something and then you're supposed to do something and all these things happen, and if someone doesn't say their line, the whole play falls apart, or at least it's very seriously altered, right? All of a sudden, everything shifts, and now we got to figure out how this new dynamic, this new way of being. The same thing in relationships. If you're in a situation where you have to deal with toxic people, don't say your line, and then see what happens. Look for another ending. Improv your way out of that, right? Yeah. So the first requirement is having a pure environment, doing some detox to really help that that seed take root and take root and plant inside of you. And then the second thing, I think, is really understanding that we all carry masculine and feminine energy, and one is not better than the other. One is not stronger than the other. They're just different energies. There's some that we focus on more than the other in our world, but one is not better than the other. They're both necessary. That balance, that yin and yang, is necessary. And so here's the thing that's interesting. In order for the Christ consciousness to take root, to be ready to birth, there has to be receptivity. There has to be a divine feminine anchoring, right? That in divine feminine anchor, that does not mean that you're behaving, bless you, in a feminine way. It just means that receptivity, that being still, right? Because the masculine does. The masculine goes out and it does, and it conquers, and it does all these great things. It moves things forward, it executes, right? It gets things done. That's what the masculine does. It protects. And the feminine, which is equally important, needs that in order to be receptive, right? To be receptive, to be that place in that space where spirit, where Christ consciousness can take hold and grow and develop. And so you need that receptivity, that state of receptivity. So the third thing I want you to think about, as you think about how can I be the light of the world in this world? How can I be that Christ consciousness? How can I let God usher in life and love and a new vibration through me? So one thing that you have to also remember is that in that story, when I talk about the Jesus' birth was just plain a simple thing. Right? It wasn't fancy. It wasn't highbrow. It was accessible to anyone. And I think what we can take from that metaphor is to simplify. Right? You don't have to go up to a mountaintop and meditate to usher this in. You don't have to do all of this fancy, and you can. You can choose that. But it's just simple. Sit down, be quiet, do your spiritual practice. Meditate, pray, be in groups with each other. Vision, all the tools that we know to use, anybody can use them. It's open to any and everybody to do these things, right? To really nurture that newborn, to really nurture and give a safe space and safe harbor to that new consciousness, right? Doing those practices that support it. They're so simple and easy to do. You don't have to do a big yoga retreat. Just sit down every day when you get out of bed and meditate, right? You don't have to go do a whole big fancy thing. Just pray. Have a prayer partner. These are things that you can just do that are available to all of us. Right? So this is another thing when we look at this story about how each of us and any of us, no one is special. Jesus said, I'm going to paraphrase here, he said, if these things I do, you can do even greater. He showed the way. He said, you can do even greater. And we are here to do that. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this teaching. Everybody's not in this teaching. This is not for everyone. This is not for the faint of heart. Religious science is not for the faint of heart. Right? Because you are taking responsibility, you are owning who you are and whose you are, and you are working on your stuff, dropping all the barriers to being the Christ that you are put here to be. And that is a hard walk. Because sometimes it just looks a lot easier, when I look at some family members or friends, it looks a lot easier just to follow some rules, Like if I follow these rules, I'm a good person, and, I don't have to really look at myself because I can look at, someone else outside of me to help me achieve a blessed state or nirvana or heaven or whatever we want to call it, right? So this is not for the faint of heart. But you chose to be here for a reason because the Christ in you wants to wake up. So the last thing I'll say, and this is a little bit later in the story. So I said how the wise men came and they honored the birth of this child who was clearly full of light. And they honored it. They recognized it. They saw it. And down the road, though, there was a king who did not see that light. That king saw a threat. And so what he decided is, okay, there's been a prophecy that there is a male child who has been born or will be born who will have all of the power. And so I'm going to make sure that that never happens. So I want every male child under the age of 2 or something like that killed. Kill all of them. And that way my power is assured. Right? And that baby, Jesus, was then taken by the masculine and the feminine into Egypt, right? Into a deeper place, into deeper learning where he was protected and could learn and gain power and gain wisdom until it was time for his appearance in the world. But here's what's interesting about the king that just sees a threat to power. We see that happening in our world, right? That's a sense of separation. That somehow, if this person's really powerful, then it's taking something from me, right? It happens in our personal lives. It happens on the world stage. Because we think, we get into that sense of separation thinking this is a pie, and it's not a pie, right? This is not a pie. Power is not finite. Power, spiritual power, is not finite. Each one of us can be fully realize Christ consciousness, and it takes nothing from anyone else in the room or anyone else on the planet. If anything, us being and playing full out creates more opportunities. It creates more abundance. It creates more light, right? Us playing full out creates more, not less. But many times we want to hide our light. We don't want to, we have that threat, and I think it's just an archetypal story that's wired within us. That somehow, if I shine, it's going to hurt somebody else. I'm going to outdo somebody else. I'm worried about somebody else, right? Or sometimes it sounds like I'm going to shine and to heck with everybody else, right? I'm going to step on other people to make sure I shine. That is just separation consciousness. It's separation consciousness. God can handle all of us lighting up. God can handle it. The world needs it. The world needs it. We don't need an army of zombies. We don't need an army of people who are asleep and sleepwalking. We already got that. We're watching it all the time. What we need is people who are awake, who have light, whose eyes are open, right? Who can look you in the eye, who can love you, who can say the easy thing and the loving thing and also say the hard thing you need to hear. That's what we need, right? Just to wake up. And so know that the king who feels resistance and feels fear is just us, right? It's us. It could be someone out there who takes that form of resistance, but sometimes it's just us saying, oh my God, I don't really want to, I don't know about this idea, I don't know if I can do this. And then we start killing all the ideas, right? All the ways that Christ wants to birth, we just start killing it with our minds, with our thoughts. Just chopping it down. Shutting it down, shutting it out. And sometimes we'll even manifest people out there who will do it for us, right? Maybe it's our parents, maybe it's well-meaning friends, who will take that role and do it for us. They'll shut us down. They'll kill the baby. And so here is the thing from this story. We are here to be the light of the world. We have everything we need to do that. There's no mistakes in this room. There's no mistakes on this planet. We have everything we need to shine right now. Right now. We don't have to wait because we are the second coming. We are the second coming. No one's coming to save us. It's something that we collectively chose to be here right now to do. And so I ask everyone in this room, are you ready to be the light of the world? Are you ready to be the light of the world? Are you ready to be the light that this world needs? Yeah. That's why we're here. That is why we're here. So for this season, I just encourage you to spend some time, some quiet time. The time between December 26th and the 12 days after Christmas is such a powerful time. So spend some time in the silence. Spend some time cultivating the Christ consciousness within your own being and asking, God, what would you have me do? What does it look like for me to shine, for me to be the light of the world? What does it look like for me to be the vessel of your love made manifest in the world? What does that look like? What am I to do? When I look around, if I look around and it looks like the worst of times, what is mine to do? Sometimes it's just to pray. Sometimes it's just to see the truth, the capital T truth, no matter what the appearance. Sometimes it's just to smile at people who are yelling at you and love them and see God. And not in that, oh, bless your heart way, but like really, right? To really see God at the very center of what is going on. So whatever it is, I encourage you to take the journey, to be willing to give birth, and to really usher in the love and the light and the joy that is encoded in your very being. Thank you. We're going to pray now. And so let's just, thank you. Thank you. I feel you so much. I feel the love in this room. And so let's just turn within now and turn into prayer. Oh, as we just settle in, and we breathe into that knowingness, into that place and space where there is only one power, there is one presence, there is one activity, there's one life, and it is love, and it is joy, and it is magnificence, and it is light. And it is available to each and every one of us. And so we just breathe into that awareness, into that remembering the all that is, the only power that is. Just sensing into knowing that the love of God is closer than our hands and feet, closer than our heartbeat. And so as I speak this word, I know absolutely I'm made in the image and likeness and out of pure spirit. I know that that is true for each and every individual in this room, that we are all emanations of the Most High, that we are all the Christ consciousness just waiting to come forward, waiting to unfurl, waiting to show up, waiting to shine. And I give thanks for this. And so I speak a word of blessing over this group this day, declaring and knowing that the light of God shines through each individual life, each individual experience, shining and growing and giving and unfurling and shining and just exploding onto the scene. This is what I know and call for each person in this room. I know that each of us knows exactly how to walk this out. We know what to do. We do our work. And we become blessings, mighty blessings. And we are blessed by the acknowledgement, by the understanding of whose we are and what we are here to do. This is what I know. And so I speak a word of blessing over this congregation. I speak a special word of blessing over Reverend Jill, knowing that right where she is, God is in all of its magnificence, all of its glory, all of its power, all of its light, as she restores and as she rests and as she just allows herself to be. And so I just give thanks for this word that is spoken. And I know that anyone that is needing a prayer this day is lifted up by this word. I know that anyone that we know in our families and our friends and that we just know in our community who needs prayer for healing of the body temple is healed. As I speak this word, the light of God is shining through their bodies. I know that anyone that needs a mental healing, a lifting of depression or lifting of stuck thoughts and stuck thinking and any kind of chemicals that need to shift in the brain, I know it happens right now as I speak this word. I know that anyone that is needing a prayer of abundance this day, in abundance, to unlock the flow of money and prosperity, divine and perfect well-being in the bank account, I know it happens right now, and that health reigns supreme in the bank account, in the mind, in the body, and in all of our affairs and body of affairs. And so this is just a word of blessing, a blanket of blessing for each individual and for our community, our family, our friends, and our world. Oh, and for this word, I give thanks. I give thanks for the truth that has been spoken, that has moved through me. I give thanks for the light that is within each of us and that collectively joins together and moves out through this world. I give thanks for being a channel and a blessing and a vessel for the word of God to come forth. Giving thanks for the music, for everything, every hand that has touched this service. Oh, and with a grateful, grateful heart, I release this word. I release it. I know it is done. It is fulfilled. And we just simply say all together to seal the deal, and so it is.